As young children, most of our stories began with once upon a time. And more than often, they ended with and they lived happily ever after. The end. And yet, as we grew older, we were taught that not every story has a happy ending. Not every story starts with once upon a time. Why then were we introduced to this farce at the very beginning of our lives? Was it really a farce? Was it really all a lie? Hello everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Chasing Hope with Catherine Abraham. In today's conversation, we are looking at how different stories of courage, stories of valor, stories of good versus evil, has helped the world become a better place to live in. As a child, I was rather frail, and for the most part, as an only child, I had overprotective parents who wanted their apple of the eye to be in front of them 24/7. This meant that I didn't have too many chances to go out, run about with friends and play. But in many ways, to be honest, I never missed any of it. Because for the most part, I was always surrounded by my best friends. Books. Books opened a gateway to reality that no one could stop me from enjoying. I loved the idea of meeting a myriad of characters only to realize that there were many things common between the so-called heroes and the so-called bad guys or the villain. But the most important underlying commonality between both was hope. You'd be surprised. How can a bad guy and a good guy equally chase hope? The truth is that even when you read a story where there is a very, very strong protagonist, you will see that the villain of the story is positing the exact opposite ideas. And he is doing so with the confidence that he will win. In other words, he too has hope that while the protagonist may be the good guy, he has a fair chance of still winning. So what is it that changes the narrative for different people? What is it about fairy tales, stories, epics, myths that help us to keep our face towards the sun despite all challenges? What we are conditioned to believe early on is there is a very, very strong sense of good and evil both present in the world. And when we look at the heroes and villains of our story, what we see is the display of fortitude and bravery. In many ways, they point us to the way forward. They tell us what we should do and what we shouldn't. In many ways, the stories are created with a view to introduce children to reality in a very, very subtle way. One such story that has kept me inspired is the story of Beauty and the Beast. Now, for those of you who have heard of it and who have read about it, it's the story of a young girl who is the youngest child of the family. She is the apple of her father's eye, very close to him, and in due course, thanks to fate and circumstance, her father loses his fortune and soon finds himself captive to a beast who can walk and talk and absolutely hates intrusions. Now, if we just peel off the superficial characters of Beauty and the Beast, you will see that the beast symbolizes different personality traits: the dark, the aggressive, the protective, and the possessive, all of which are present in every single human being. Now let's look at Beauty, who in all her essence looks at changing this beast once she has overcome her own fear. The fear of staying with a creature that is deformed, that inspires fear, and yet she is the symbol of grace and resilience and change. And this change is the outcome of the tenderness and strength that she finds within her. When we begin to look at characters and engage with them as more than just characters, we will see that these are also the personality traits. They are an extension of human behavior. When we look at the good and bright in people, we see beauty. When we are encountered by the dark and aggressive, we are interacting with the beast. But the brilliance of this entire story is that Beauty, with her fragility and vulnerability, can overcome the dark, the aggressive beast. And if that has sunk in, there comes another story along the road: Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Again, this is a story that highlights the best and worst within a particular human being. But what really is the big picture here? When we recognize our limitations, we realize that while God made man in his own image, we came preloaded with the software of grace, abundance, loyalty, nobility. And when we grow up, thanks to the external environment, thanks to people around us, the darker side, finds a way to manifest itself. This is a societal extension, a man-made virus-ridden software that attempts to corrupt us, attempts to corrupt who we are. But I can't be normal and happy and noble all the time. A lot of people say this. But the truth is, we are human. And so, even God does not expect you to be normal, happy, noble, and gracious all the time. But what He does tell you is, wherever it is possible, let's tame the beast despite our own challenges, our own limitations, and our own vulnerabilities. While everyone recognizes Jesus Christ as one of the most peaceful, serene characters that ever walked this earth, let's also not forget that when he was met by injustice, and when he saw that the synagogue was being corrupted by people who were sitting there and selling stuff in what was meant to be only a place of worship, he too used the whip. And that is what we need to realize. When we choose to be aggressive, or when we choose to show our other side, are we completely justified? This is a question that you need to ask yourself. A popular Indian tale that comes to mind is that of Ram and Ravan. Ram, who basically symbolizes all the good and the peaceful. And then there comes Ravan, who symbolizes the dark. Again, the aggressive. Every year, millions of Indians burn the effigy of Ravan, but with the simple understanding that while they see that effigy burn, they're also burning all the bad within themselves, all the negative is being wiped out, burnt out. So we are discarding that which we do not require. And in this case, it is the dark and aggressive. Everyone, every single person who comes into this world comes pure. All that we need to do is recognize the purity of our being. And when we recognize the purity of our being, we are able to manifest the good and the bright and the pure further on. And we will meet people who will reflect this purity. And what we are doing is we are creating a chain, a cycle of purity. Because my thoughts are pure, I am able to connect with you. Because my thoughts are clear, I am able to share who I am with an absolute stranger without feeling overwhelmed, without feeling worried of some kind of prejudice or bias coming my way. Because I, as a person, I, as a living human being, I am radiating all that is good. And when there comes a time that I am met with injustice, I will go ahead and I will make sure that I fight it. Because I am standing for the right. Overcoming temptations, overcoming all that is wrong, overcoming all that is seeking to make you a failure is a challenge in itself. A challenge that you must encounter every day. But here's the thing. You will win if you are more mindful of your own thoughts. If you are more mindful of your own interactions with people. When you recognize that every person is capable of being good. When you give out that second chance. These are the things that distinguish us from everyone else. The Bible reminds us, you are the light of the world. A city on a hill cannot be hidden, nor does anyone light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on the lampstand. And it gives light to all who are in the house. Let your light so shine before men in such a way that they may see your good works and glorify your Father who is in heaven. Yes, my friends, you and I are called to guide people to do the right. You and I are invited to be God's children and His ambassadors. When we choose to work for the greater good, we find that we will still have problems, worries, stress, and fear. But just like beauty, through our own challenges and vulnerabilities, we will find a way to overcome all of this and choose a lifestyle that is filled with peace and hope. Because the presence of God amidst difficulties make us as people whole and complete. I hope you've enjoyed yourself in this particular episode of Chasing Hope. If you have any queries, questions, suggestions, prayer requests, please get in touch with us on Twitter or log on to our website www.chasinghopewithkatherine.com. We're waiting to hear from you and we're waiting to know how this podcast has been inspiring you. Thank you for tuning in, and I look forward to meeting you in our next episode.